Hello and welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining me. If you're new here, I hope that you consider subscribing to my channels to stay up to date with the most important news from around the world. In this video, we will discuss yet another great defeat of Russia on the battlefields of Ukraine. This time, it has to do with Russia losing its lifeline when it comes to oil supply to Europe, as Ukraine just targeted the only remaining pipeline that was supplying Russian crude oil to Europe. And this blow to Russia is estimated at more than $1.2 trillion. Make sure that you watch until the end of this video, because there are so many important details that you have to know about. But before we get into it, I'd like to ask you to please show your support by leaving a like on this video and by sharing it. There are many people who do and realize how important it is to stay up to date with the latest events in Ukraine and Russia. I would really appreciate if you could help me reach them. So please take a second to share this video with your friends and family. Thank you. Alright, so here's what happened. Overnight, an explosion was reported near the main oil pipeline that runs from Russia through Belarus and Ukraine into Europe. The explosion was so powerful that a fiery mushroom cloud was seen rising above the area. Now here's the thing. This pipeline is the last one that Russia is using to export its oil to Europe. After Ukraine destroyed the other two pipelines earlier this year, it is called Druzhba, which translates to friendship in English. And now it is completely destroyed, which means that Russia lost its last lifeline to Europe, making it impossible to bypass sanctions imposed by Western countries. Now, let me give you some background information about this pipeline, so that you understand just how devastating this blow to Russia really is. The Druzhba pipeline originates in Russia's Samara region and is 4,700 miles, or 7,600 kilometers long. It transports Russian oil to Ukraine, Belarus, Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, the Czech Republic, Austria, and Germany. In total, the pipeline has 6 branches. The 2 that were previously destroyed were located in southern and central Ukraine. This pipeline that was targeted overnight was the northern branch that ran from Russia to Belarus and then to Ukraine and further west. The first segment of this pipeline is owned by Russia's Transneft company and runs from Samara to the border with Belarus. The section in Belarus is owned by Belarusneft, a subsidiary of state-run oil and gas company Belarusian Petroleum Concern. The pipeline then enters Ukraine, where it splits into 3 branches. One of these branches goes to the Hungarian capital of Budapest. The second one supplies oil to Slovakia and the Czech Republic. And the third one leads to Poland and further west into Central Europe. These 3 branches of the pipeline are owned by Ukraine's state-owned pipeline operator, gas transmission system operator. Earlier this year in June, the first segment of the pipeline was shut down after Ukraine SS-300 air defense system intercepted a Russian Kh-101 cruise missile, which then crashed into the pipeline, causing a fire. At the time, Russian media outlet TASS reported that the damage affected 36.5 million barrels of oil per day, or $1.6 billion worth of oil. Then, in July, the second segment of the pipeline was destroyed due to Ukrainian partisan activities. At the time, the Russian government said that approximately 40,000 tons of oil were spilled into the environment. So as you can see, this pipeline has been a target of sabotage since the beginning of the war. And now the last segment of the Druzhba pipeline running through Ukraine has been completely destroyed. According to reports, the incident occurred in the Mykolaiv region, which has been liberated by Ukraine just recently. The exact location of the blast was not disclosed. However, according to Dmitry Marchek, the head of the regional council of Mykolaiv, the explosion occurred 30 kilometers or 19 miles away from the front line. He stated, "We immediately took measures to extinguish the fire and sent rescuers to the scene." He also noted that civilians had to be evacuated from the nearby settlements as a precaution. At this time, we don't have any pictures from the site of the blast, but we do have satellite images that show the location of the explosion and the approximate amount of damage. Here they are. As you can see, a massive crater was formed due to the explosion. And in order to put the size of this crater into perspective, I have included a picture of a school bus for you to compare. Based on this satellite image alone, it is safe to say that a large amount of crude oil was destroyed. Although we don't have any official numbers yet, it is safe to say that the value of the destroyed pipeline alone is well over $1.2 trillion. And that's just the direct cost of destroying the pipeline itself. There will also be billions of dollars worth of damages to the environment and to the local communities. not to mention that Russia now has even fewer options to sell its oil on the international markets. You may recall that Russia lost its biggest oil buyer, China, when Beijing refused to buy Russian oil in October. Earlier this month, Russian media outlets reported that India, the second largest consumer of Russian oil, was going to reduce its purchases as well. The fact that Ukraine was able to destroy Russia's last oil pipeline to Europe is a significant blow to Russia's economy, which is already suffering from the impact of Western sanctions. Russia's Ministry of Digital Development, Innovation and Trade reported that the Russian Federation exported 24 million tons of crude oil in the first half of this year. It's 24% less compared to the same period last year. Also, according to S&P Global, Russia's seaborne crude exports decreased by 960,000 barrels per day to 2.3 million barrels per day in September, which is 20% lower than the monthly average in 2021. The decrease was primarily due to logistical constraints. And now, with the complete destruction of the Druzhba pipeline, we should expect these numbers to continue declining. In addition to that, we should keep in mind that Russia needs to transport its oil via sea routes that are much longer than what it used to take prior to the war. For example, oil that used to be transported to refineries in Poland, Hungary, and Slovakia now has to be delivered by rail to Krasnodar, which is located on the Black Sea coast, and then shipped by sea to India or China. The additional costs associated with this longer transportation route are substantial, which means that Russia's oil exports are becoming less profitable. As you can see, the Druzhba pipeline is a critical piece of infrastructure for Russia's energy exports to Europe. And now that it's gone, Russia's already struggling economy will suffer even more. Keep in mind that Russia's budget deficit increased to 3.3 trillion rubles in the first 9 months of this year, which is equivalent to $51 billion. The deficit is mainly due to higher spending on national defense as a result of the war in Ukraine and lower revenue from crude oil and gas exports. All of this brings us to the most important question, which is who did it? Who was behind the destruction of the Druzhba pipeline? And the answer is Ukraine. Of course, Ukraine didn't say anything publicly, but think about it, why would it? Destroying Russia's oil infrastructure is a military target. It's a legitimate target, and Ukraine has every right to do so. And yes, someone had to be behind this attack. Think about it. Explosions don't just happen on their own. An explosion requires fuel, oxygen, and ignition source. All three components must be present at the same time for an explosion to occur. Someone set the stage for this explosion. As we all know, Ukraine has the world-class army made up of highly trained individuals, both military and civilian. There are many talented engineers and military contractors within Ukraine. Many of them have been involved in designing and executing extremely dangerous operations against Russia. So it is absolutely plausible that they were behind this explosion. On the other hand, we also have to consider the possibility that this explosion was caused by Russian partisans. Since the invasion of Ukraine, we have seen countless examples of Ukrainians fighting against the Russians, both on and off the battlefield. It is entirely possible that someone close to the pipeline decided to take matters into their own hands and eliminate this key piece of Russian infrastructure. And finally, we also cannot rule out the possibility that this was an accident. Accidents happen all the time. They happen regardless of whether it is wartime or peacetime. And while accidents shouldn't be ruled out, I personally believe that this explosion was no accident. Someone wanted this pipeline to explode, and someone made it happen. So this is the video that I have for you today. I worked really hard on putting it together, and I hope that you found it valuable and informative. If you did, please show your support by leaving a thumbs up, by sharing it, and by subscribing. I would really appreciate that. And as always, thank you for your time. I will see you tomorrow. Take care.